pizza delivery. It was a typical evening shift, and I was on my last delivery for the night. The order came from a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of town, one I hadn't been to before. The houses there were old but well-maintained, each with large, looming trees that cast long shadows across the streets. It was a far cry from the bustling neighborhoods I usually delivered to, but the address seemed legitimate. As I pulled up to the house, I noticed that the windows were dimly lit, except for a soft glow coming from what looked like a living room. The address matched, but something about the place felt off. It wasn't run down, but there was a sense of abandonment, overgrown grass, faded paint, and an eerie stillness that seemed to hang in the air. I grabbed the pizza and walked toward the front door, my footsteps sounding too loud in the silent night. As I approached, I noticed through the front window that a TV was on, displaying a silent cartoon. The animation flickered across the screen, bright and colorful, but no one appeared to be sitting in the room. I hesitated, unsure if I should knock or just leave the pizza on the doorstep. My breath caught in my throat as I called out, "Hello?" Pizza delivery, the words echoed back to me, unanswered. The house was unnervingly quiet despite the glowing light from the television. I shifted uneasily, glancing around, but no one came to the door. The longer I stood there, the more uncomfortable I felt. Should I leave? The job wasn't worth this kind of weirdness. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Slowly, a figure emerged from the shadowy hallway that led deeper into the house. My heart skipped a beat as the figure stepped into the dim light. It was a man, or at least it looked like one. He stood eerily still, just at the edge of the hallway, staring right at me. His appearance was unsettling. His eyes were wide, almost unnaturally so, and they didn't blink. His mouth hung slightly open, as if he were frozen mid-sentence. The way he stood there, unmoving, sent a chill down my spine. I cleared my throat, trying to push down the growing sense of dread. "Did you order a large pizza?" I asked, my voice sounding too loud in the empty space. The man didn't respond. He just continued to stare at me, his wide eyes locked onto mine, unblinking. An overwhelming sense of wrongness washed over me. My instincts screamed for me to leave, to get out of there immediately, but part of me wanted to finish the delivery and escape without making a scene. "I'm just going to leave it here," I muttered, quickly setting the pizza down on a small table near the door. My hands shook as I placed it down, and I could feel his gaze burning into the back of my neck. Just as I turned to leave, the silence was broken by the creak of the floorboards behind me. The man had moved. I heard the soft shuffle of his footstep, and then a voice, so low and raspy that I barely caught it, whispered, "Wait." I froze, my pulse pounding in my ears. Every nerve in my body told me to run, but my legs felt like they were glued to the floor. "I didn't order." "Pizza," he said slowly, dragging out each word as if it pained him to speak. My blood ran cold. If he didn't order the pizza, why was I here? Who had placed the order? I swallowed hard, my mouth suddenly dry. I think there's been a mistake," I stammered, edging closer to the door, my back still turned to him. I wanted to get out, but something told me I wasn't safe just yet. The man's voice turned harsher, more aggressive. "I think you should go." That was all I needed. Without looking back, I bolted out of the house, my heart racing as I slammed the screen door behind me. I practically leaped off the porch, sprinting to my car. As I fumbled with my keys, I stole a glance back at the house. The man was now standing on the porch, his figure barely illuminated by the glow from the living room. He was still staring at me, just like before, unmoving. His presence felt wrong, like a statue that had come to life for just a moment, only to freeze again. I jumped into my car, my hands shaking as I started the engine and peeled away from the curb. My mind raced with confusion and fear. What had just happened? Who was that man? As I sped down the empty street, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The house faded into the distance, and with it, the man's unsettling figure disappeared from sight. But the unease lingered. Even after I got home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The next day, I called my manager to report the strange encounter. I described the man, the silent house, the eerie stillness. My manager, however, was dismissive. "It's probably just a mix-up," he said nonchalantly. "Some people in those areas are a bit odd. Don't worry about it." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. The encounter gnawed at me, playing over and over in my head. His eyes wide and unblinking, his voice so low and strange, and the way he told me to leave. A few days later, while talking to a friend about the experience, I learned something that made my blood run cold. The house I had delivered to had been abandoned for years. No one had lived there for a long time. The man I saw, the one who had stared at me so intensely, who was he? Could he have been real? Or had I encountered something far more terrifying than just a mistaken pizza order?